ago, I think it was, over at the ITMEC, and had a few people show up and a few counselors show up and some staff. Meeting went pretty well. People asked some questions. Nobody seemed overly adamant one way or the other. We did have one gentleman that did come that just shared some concerns about 17th Street, which we try to alleviate them as best we can. But long and the short of it is, just need to know if council wants to officially, so because we are doing just in general, we got to decide if we're going to move ahead with the project, but officially, because we're using the Chapter 429, we need to make that official resolution ordering the improvement project. So it is what we had presented previously to you, the 2023-25 street infrastructure improvement project scope. I can review that with you quick if I need to, but and then again, we held the public hearing. So next step is to order the improvement.
I'll move the resolution ordering the 23-25 street infrastructure.
Councilor Johnson moves to adopt the resolution on item 2C. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing Councilor Baraboo.
Just one quick thing. I don't want to see our street project, we spent all this time, we spent over 2.5 years doing all this work on these projects. I don't want to see that go down the drains by us not approving this. This is part of where we have to go with the city. We have to continue and then move forward after 25 with more street work. It's imperative with the aging structures of our city streets. So I'm supportive of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich, any questions, concerns, comments? Okay, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, is this the resolution on page 18 in our packet that says, whereas the Minnesota Department of Transportation wishes to cooperate closely with local units of government?
No, that's
item 3.
we don't have that one in. Get it for the next meeting.
Okay, what page is it on? Oh, it's not, okay. I'm sorry, okay. Okay, so that'll be coming forward then for the council meeting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. That has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Barnzelli.
17th Street is really nice, boy.
Yep.
So, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Then we can bounce back to letter A. So one of the steps in the process that we would like to do is, so this is collecting data so that we can have as much information as we possibly can as we get moving into the project and get things as accurate as we possibly can in the bidding documents. So you may recall or you may not, but the last project, we had a company come in and televise all of the sanitary sewer lines that were part of the project so we could, one, review the condition, because on the off chance that something had been repaired that we weren't aware of, maybe we don't need to do it. But probably equally as important is being able to get accurate representation of where the service lines are and just various things that are associated with those pipes. So we solicited 3 quotes from 3 different contractors. We did get 2 back. They're included in your packet. And the low quote was from Nelson Sanitation and Rental in the amount of $11,295.50. And so I reviewed both the quotes and have actually talked to both those contractors. And so I'm recommending that if the council feels it appropriate, to go ahead and move ahead with hiring Nelson Sanitation to do the televising.
Thank you. Councilor Freely.
Where is Nelson located? Just
They are out of, they're down by Rice, down by St. Cloud, I believe.
I would move the motion, or I would make a motion to move the Nelson quote since it's the lower of the 2.
Thank you. Councilor Freely moves to approve the quote recommended for National Sanitation. Is there support?
All support for discussion, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable for discussion, further discussion. Counselor Bearable.
Matt, just one thing, and I don't see it in there, maybe I missed it. Does this include letting you know where all the service lines and stuff are too, the same as the other quotes?
Yes, they'll provide us a report of their findings, and that will include the service locations.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then the last item then under this number would be B. So this is the professional services agreement. There'll be a few of these coming forward. Again, I'd rather come to you with everything all at once, but I want to make sure that we're taking this meticulously, and I think we mentioned at a previous meeting that we're still working through some of the funding. So the stuff that I'm able to, we can keep things moving. We can work on the topographic survey and right-of-way work, the geotechnical investigation, and the wetland delineation. It's the stuff that we need before we can start anything anyway. So there's nothing in here yet for any design work. That'll be forthcoming at a future meeting, but this is to get our guys start collecting the field work and get the geotech guys going. So I can answer any questions you might have on this as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Counselor Paulson?
I'll move to approve the professional services agreement with SEH.
Counselor Paulson moved to approve the professional services agreement with SCH. Is there support?
All support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
One other thing, Matt, that item number 3 is approve the resolution to enter into a master partnership contract with the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
Yep, okay. So every few years, the city enters into, or has in the past anyway, entered into this agreement with MnDOT. It's a mechanism where if you need to work with MnDOT on any of materials testing or anything during a project for whatever reason, whether it's one led by them where there's city participation, or whether you have an emergency need to, one thing I can think of is if we're in a project and we all of a sudden can't get somebody there to certify a bituminous plant, for example, we can work with MnDOT and we have a master agreement in place on how that would all be handled. So it doesn't commit the city to anything by any means. It just opens that opportunity and provides that opportunity there if it's needed. So I would recommend extending, or I should say re-upping, the agreement that you currently have with MnDOT for those services.
Thank you, Matt.
Mayor, I will so make the motion that we enter into the agreement with MnDOT. What's it called, Matt? The service agreement?
Yeah, it's a master partnership
Master
agreement.
partnership agreement. Also move that.
Counselor Bearable moves to approve the partnership agreement with Minnesota Department of Transportation. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay,
Thank you, Matt.
thank you.
Item number 4 is a resolution hiring for a single-role EMT for the Virginia Fire Department.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson and supported by
I'll support.
Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5 is approve the resolution to increase election judge wages.
So
I'll move
moved.
the increase.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve the resolution to increase the election judge wages. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 6 is discuss the renaming of the Tennis for All building. And we have Brian Silber, our Park and Recreation Director here.
Okay. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. Back in April, I had received a letter from Dave Gunderson requesting us to consider renaming the indoor tennis facility in honor of George Erickson. In your packet on page 58, you can find a copy of that letter from him. Mr. Erickson was very instrumental in the raising of funds for that facility. He has been engaged in the Tennis for All program for decades and has been very instrumental in seeing that program be successful. The request to rename was sent to the Park and Recreation Commission back in April, and in following the city's policies, the Park and Recreation Commission decided to not take action in April, but wait until May, giving the public time to comment on that. So in our June meeting, we had received one comment from the public basically asking how much money Mr. Erickson was going to be donating to the Tennis for All program to have his name on the building. As you can see by the letter, he is not donating anything. Mr. Gunderson is requesting that the building be renamed because of everything he has done previously. Park and Rec Commission discussed this and voted unanimously in favor of it to send it to the City Council for discussion and hopeful approval.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Hang on for a little bit. Councilor Friedlieb?
I'm fully in favor of this, knowing the involvement that Mr. Erickson had with the development of that, and certainly the recommendation from Dave Gunderson, who's as close as you can be to the beginning of that whole project. Will the city, however, incur additional costs for changing signage and so on and so forth?
No, in the letter that you see, Mr. Gunderson is committing to raise the funds through the Tennis for All to replace the signage and everything. So other than changing some names on websites and things like that, we should not incur any cost other than some staff time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson, and then we'll go over to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think this is a wonderful tribute to George. He's contributed so much to the tennis program and to the building. And just to clarify too, he and his wife, in fact, did, at the time that the building was being, the funds were being raised for the building, he did contribute $170,000
Yes.
of his own money for that building. So that speaks amazing volumes to his dedication. And I think it's wonderful that Mr. Gunderson came forward with this concept and idea. And in our packet, we've got an outline of naming city-owned public buildings, properties, parks, and park facilities. And this does fall under our criteria that we are in fact able to do this. And the fact that they're willing to help incur the cost of changing the sign, I'm all in favor. So I'd go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Councilor Paulson to approve the request for the naming of the Tennis for All facility in the name of George Erickson. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Baraboo. Further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I would like to see, Brian, is the plan for the changing of the name. My concern is that they're going to fundraise to change the name on the side of the building, and it's going to take a while, and then we're going to start getting complaints about why isn't the sign renamed. So if we could have some sort of, I would like to see some sort of plan on Tuesday that what the steps will be for making the name change official, and if there's going to be an official unveiling and that kind of stuff. Just for the sake of argument, as we're dealing with other naming things, other places, I want to make sure we have a plan laid out.
Very good.
Thank you. And then before we vote, I have one comment, one question. First is, I think it might be a good idea if this passes through onto the City Council for final action, that if that's going to be the case, maybe there's some communication between yourself, Park and Rec Commission, and all of us about having some kind of ribbon cutting in order for the name to be done, make it formal in that regard. I think that would be important. And then the second thing is, I just want to make sure that this was advertised enough so the general public is well aware that this is our effort to name this in honor of Mr. George Erickson. So that, yeah, it is come to the Park and Rec Commission. There was one comment, I didn't see any advertisements in the paper, but we have discussed it before in the open public. So do you feel that it's been advertised enough to have enough comments with respect to the intent to do so?
I believe so.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. So, is there a motion already? It has been moved and supported to authorize the changing of the name of the Tennis for All facility in the name of Mr. George Erickson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Thank you to the Park and Rec Commission for their work in this regard, and thank you, Mr. Erickson and his family for their dedication, so, okay.
Mayor, I was reading an email related to this next item.
Yes.
Item number 7 is a split of parcels in RLS 11. The attorneys are going back and forth with an email I just got, so he's stating that Colleen just said, I may have spoken too soon. I just spoke to our paralegal. I do not know that the city needs to file a resolution before filing the petition. But I feel we should at least give our blessing on item number 7. With the split of the parcels in RLS 11 is we had sold that parcel to the hotel. And because it's a registered land survey, you can't just give them, you can give them a deed, but it doesn't effectively transfer the property correctly until you do a petition to the court that you're splitting up a parcel without subdividing it. So because we didn't make it a plat, we're dividing this parcel that's our registered land survey 11, we have to go through this extra step. And so the extra step is in your packet. It shows the split of the parcels into 3 separate parcels, which would be the minor spot, will be the hotel spot, 6th Street South, 5th Street South, and the existing Iron Trail Motors Event Center building facility.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not in favor of this, but there's no map in here, and this is really confusing. I mean, I read.
We'll get you a map for the council meeting, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
It's really the dedication of the 5th and 6th Street South. Is we are dedicating roads, so making them actual physical city streets.
Correct.
Which they are not right now, because it's a registered land survey. So this will assist us in doing that, in creating those roads. And then.
So we're creating 3 different parcels off of the one.
Correct.
And then on the parcel that belongs, or that will be going to the hotel,
Correct.
that won't, 6 is going to run to the north of that.
Correct.
So there's no easement issues.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we'll get you the map that correlates to that, because that shows all the easements that we do have to have in there for utilities and such are tied into this split now.
Okay.
We have them all properly recorded. And Matt, if you have anything else to jump in with, no? I think I got it. It's a very long, complicated legal process that we didn't
It was
realize.
confusing.
It's very confusing, very, very confusing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna stress. It is confusing. There's a couple of different easements that are described, and there's, of course, now the right-of-way for 6th Street that's going through there where the roundabout is, and then there's, yeah, the map would help clarify it, but even with the map, it's been a long process of
Yeah,
doing
this isn't something we started working on last week. This has been working on since we determined we were going to give the hotel that property. We were trying to figure out the proper way to divide this parcel without creating a plat.
I don't mean to go on, but is there someone then that can kind of come, I don't know if you'd come next time, or just, I guess I'd like to see the overall, like a schematic of what's going on, and then just explain the process a little bit better?
That'll help clarify it, and I think if will your city attorney be there to, they would
We couldn't be here
probably.
today because one of their attorneys is out sick and she had to go to the court today. But
Yeah,
Yep.
but certainly I do think that the map it might still be a little confusing, the process itself, but hopefully it'll clarify at least what things look like.
Okay, I would appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson?
And this may be solved by the map also, but is this also planning for the extension off the roundabout to the south? Will that be a part of what's going on?
we'd have to do that again.
Okay, so that's a separate
That's
project?
a separate one, yeah.
Perfect, that's all
This
I
is just
need.
addressing what we're currently has developed and developing right now.
Okay, perfect. Then I will move to direct staff to complete the necessary paperwork and resolutions for Tuesday night's meeting.
All support, Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Baraboo?
Yeah, this is like the junk parcels and all that stuff we had, it's as bad as some of these you've seen in the past, and maybe none of you have seen those over time with these railroad properties and all the rest of the junk we've had around for getting these things solved. And there's a couple of them that still aren't solved to this day, but we got to do this if we want this development put in this area, which is outstanding for the city to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then item number 8, Iron Trail Motors Event Center. The first one is the cancellation of the professional service agreement with Masabi Family YMCA. Since the publishing of the notice, we have been approached by Duluth YMCA, and Brian Silber, our Park and Recreation Director, can give us more information on that.
Brian?
Yes, as you guys are probably aware, or you may or may not be aware, last week the YMCA board made the decision to close the YMCA doors effective July 31st of this year, end of this month. The Duluth YMCA will be taking over their programming aspects so that there will still be the after-school programs and everything that the YMCA has provided. That will still occur. And then I was also received a phone call last week that the Duluth YMCA is interested and willing to have some discussions regarding taking on the Masabi YMCA's agreement with us to operate the fitness facility. Obviously, we have not received a notice of cancellation of the contract. The board made their decision to close the YMCA doors in 30 days. Our agreement says that we have to have a 60-day notice. So I'm really here today to update you on where we stand. I am working on getting a meeting set together with the Duluth YMCA to see if they are willing to take on this agreement, which would then require council action to transfer the agreement to the Duluth YMCA.
Okay, thank you. So regardless of this, the agreement we have is with the Masaba Family YMCA. So it's on here listed as the cancellation of professional services, and we have to give them 60 days notice in which to do that. So between the 30-day notice upon their expiration on July 31st and our requirement to give them notice, which is another 30 days, will they continue to operate the fitness facility at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center for that 30 days after they've already closed the YMCA in Mountain Iron?
I cannot intelligently answer that question at this point until I meet with Duluth. At this point, they have definitely committed to operating through the end of the month. However, if the Duluth YMCA is not going to absorb those staff members that are sitting at the front desk and everything, I don't see how they would be able to operate effective August 1st.
Yeah, and the question for me was if there's a YMCA member that can no longer utilize the facility in Mountain Iron, and they're operating this facility here, but they're giving notice that they're closing their facility in Mountain Iron, doesn't necessarily mean they're closing the facility at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So those people that currently have memberships that are paid up beyond probably the expiration date of July 31st may want to come over and utilize this facility. So the question would be, is that 30-day period between August 1st and August 31st, you're going to be having discussions with the Duluth YMCA, maybe come up with some kind of resolution. But regardless of that, we need to cancel the professional services with YMCA or not?
I don't know what the council's desire is, if we want to cancel it, if we want to enter into discussions with Duluth for them to take this over, if we want to explore different options that we can go in. As far as I see, our options that we could go with are work with the Duluth YMCA, go back out for a request for proposals for somebody else to come in and run it, or look at different options of running the rooms ourselves.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that, I mean, I wish we had some attorney present to discuss this, but I would believe that we need to cancel the professional services agreement. And then if there is a lag time of 30 days, I would just assume we wouldn't pay the $1,600 during that 1 month. And that we could, in fact, manage it throughout Park and Rec staff. But it would not be my intention to have any discussion with Duluth at all. That would be my intent as a city councilor. The experience that I had, so I paid 6 months for a membership now that's null and void at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. In order to get a key card, I had to go, I don't know if other people have had this experience, but I had to go to the YMCA to get a YMCA key card that was too small to fit in the actual doors of the fitness center at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So those doors were remaining propped open, and I don't know if that's the case with all memberships or if that was just something, I was an anomaly. But they were issuing the little YMCA's key card. Is that correct? Because the city of Virginia isn't issuing those.
Correct.
Yeah, so their key card does not fit into our system. So there was really no integration there for security. I've got a 13-year-old daughter that, I mean, that's who the membership was for. There was no security then if those doors were propped open. And so it would not be my intention at all to move forward with any type of discussion with Duluth. I feel like we, as a city, need to run this internally and collect the revenue and have our employees monitor the facility, or the area. So that I would make a motion for the cancellation of the professional services agreement with the Mesabi Family YMCA. I do not believe that contract can be transferred over. It is, as it states, it is specific to the Mesabi Family YMCA, not the Duluth or YMCA corporate. It is specifically with the Mesabi Family YMCA. So I will make a motion to cancel that professional service agreement and work out the details regarding the fee that we were paying of $1,600 a month to the Mesabi Family YMCA, as well as try to understand those that have obtained memberships, what the obligations then would be left on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So your motion is to cancel the professional service agreement with the Mesabi Family YMCA.
Correct.
And is there support for that?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion. Councilor Freely.
Have you had the chance even to consider like what costs we would incur with personnel to staff this in-house? I mean, my preference would be I think it's timely for us to do this, to move it back into the ownership of the city since it's our building. But I don't know that we have the staff trained or what it would cost to get staff trained to be able to orient people to the machinery in there and to oversee that operation of that room and those facilities. But I would like to see you at least consider that and give us maybe a proposal as to who, how, when, and where to be able to accomplish that.
Before we went out for requests for proposals for somebody else to run it, we had run numbers of how many memberships we would have to generate to cover the staffing costs and everything. And it was quite a few members. We didn't believe that there was the market share available in the area for us to reach those numbers. With the Mesabi YMCA closing, of course, that will change the market share that is available. However, we have also seen that none of our fitness facilities in the area are busting at the seams with members to the point that it really warrants an additional fitness facility coming online. I'd be more than happy to run those numbers again as far as staffing and looking at several different models to operate that in-house. I don't know if it is financially the best option for us to use it to generate revenue. However, it could.
And even in the interim, like a rec assistant potentially? I mean, is there a way to staff it even for?
We would be able to staff it with recreation assistants. However, remember, since we have opened, we have never been fully staffed in recreation assistants, and this would be another avenue of utilizing recreation assistants where we already are very tight on their hours. Also would have the potential to hire the YMCA staff that was working there as recreation assistants. They have been trained, they know it. We would have to quickly put into place a membership model and access cards, scanning in system. There's a lot more than just saying, hire somebody to sit at the front desk and voila, we have a fitness center.
But at least it would be in-house.
Yes.
Managed by us. The logistics would be preferable from my standpoint to have it in-house. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to you, Counselor Bearable, and then over to Counselor Johnson, just a clarification on your motion, Counselor Paulson. The cancellation, is there a specific date effective immediately, according to the 60, no, it's effective today, or,
I'd say
well,
effective
effective
immediately.
immediately,
So
so,
that it gives, I mean, it has to be approved at the council level, but
Right.
I would say effective immediately because they're closing anyway
very good.
immediately. Thank
Yep,
you.
just looking for a date on that motion, thank you. Moved and supported, and discussion, Counselor Bearable, and then over to Counselor Johnson.
I think we're way too mature, or early to cancel this thing, and here's the reason why, okay? You have a notice both ways on this contract, 60 days, correct? That they both have to cancel, either us or them,
Correct.
okay? Now, they have a liability in there if we pursue them legally with their buildings, with their other stuff, with their revenues that exist on that property. If we start losing money on this deal, I don't think we should cancel right now until the time frame is totally up on this. Force them into providing the services somehow through their overall system that they have nationwide. I think we need some attorneys' opinions on this before we, actually, I can't vote for this at this point. I've seen too much of this over the years, and then they skate out with nothing and no liabilities, no nothing, other organizations in the past. So I can't support this at all at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. I'm actually in agreement with Councilor Baraboo on this. I don't think we should be terminating the contract because they're the ones who are changing the status quo. It doesn't matter if they're closing their doors on July 31st. It doesn't matter if we do or don't cancel the contract. They don't exist. I mean, it's kind of by the nature of it is if they're done on the 31st, they're done on the 31st. I think we need to not discount any options moving forward. If the Duluth Y in their corporate structure automatically absorbs this and moves forward for a certain term, I think that's very important too, to be able to have that discussion. So I think that we're jumping too quick, panicking maybe, I don't know. And I do have a personal stake in this. I have parent friends who are absolutely crazy about what's going to happen come September 5th when school starts. So I want to make sure that as we're looking at this, we're being methodical and patient and really thinking about what's going on. So I will not be supporting canceling the contract, and I would like to see us be open to all the options again and look forward to what could be. We have, for the folks that have talked to me, this is the only part, they don't care about the other part, it's the child care aspect. What's happening with the summer programs, which the Duluth is going to continue the summer child care program, and what happens in September simply because of the school changes and this. So I would like to see us move forward with being open to everything. Thank you, Mayor.
And please keep in mind that the after-school program and the summer programs for the youth have nothing to do with this agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. So before we go back to Counselor Paulson, this is a community home running, obviously. we're moving, we're moving this to the council for final approval. So any additional information that comes through, any other options that are available, any other investigations done, any information that's provided by our legal counsel can all be culminated into additional information at the council meeting level. But at the committee level, I'm going to support moving forward with the cancellation. And then the final approval doesn't come till next week, so we'll have time to figure out whether we want to actually vote to do this or not. But I think moving it from the committee meeting to the council meeting is prudent. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. If you actually read the agreement in our packet, it says this agreement is entered into this 14th day of July 21st by and between the City of Virginia, a municipal corporation, under the laws of the state of Minnesota herein city, and the Mesabi Family YMCA, a nonprofit corporation organized under the laws of the state of Minnesota hereinafter YMCA. This agreement is specific to the Mesabi Family YMCA. When the city received a letter stating that the Mesabi Family YMCA is ceasing to exist, this contract is no longer valid. So we do, in fact, I would think that the attorney will give a legal opinion that this, in fact, this contract has to be canceled. The Duluth YMCA or the corporate YMCA cannot pick this contract up. This contract has to be canceled, and then a new contract would have to be drafted with whomever the entity is if we choose to go outside the city running and owning and operating, well, we own it, but running and operating the wellness center. And the childcare has absolutely nothing to do with the programming that the Mesabi Family YMCA is currently providing for the region. So that has absolutely nothing to do with the two fitness center spaces at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So I'm not sure why this is so confusing. They're the ones, I'm not afraid and I'm not jumping the gun. They're the ones that are ceasing to exist. You can't have a contract with a company or an entity that's ceasing to exist. So that's, if we could get an attorney, one of our attorneys to clarify, because I feel that that's the proper procedure, I would greatly appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, the motion on the floor is to cancel the professional service agreement to Mesabi Family YMCA and move this to the council for final approval in that regard. And so part of that motion is the cancellation of services. You know, when you say cancellation immediately, it's cancellation in accordance with what the contract says, right? So it's a 60-day notice, and that way, if it was to be approved moving forward from here to the council meeting, then that 60 days notice starts at the time we approve it at the council meeting, if we choose to do so. So thank you, Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, the one thing you're forgetting, that if we accept a cancellation on this at this point without having some attorney input into this, we could be, they could be liable for damages for the cost of the city to pick up what we've already had in a contract with them. I don't care what cancellation you do, there's backdrops that you can go back after these things, even if a contract's canceled. You can still go back after damages and stuff, because there's going to be significant damage to our ITMEC process if we have to pick up all the costs and continue this program. We got to start over from scratch with more expenses. So there can be damages to a canceled contract. Don't ever think it can't happen, because it can happen.
All right, thank you, Councilor Bearable. So there is a motion on the floor from the committee of the meeting to cancel the professional services agreement with YMCA, give them notice, and move this to the council meeting, the formal council meeting, for formal action on this matter. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
A roll call, please, Pam.
Friedlieb,
Aye.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich is absent. Johnson,
No.
Aaronzelli. Yes. Huffy,
Aye.
Baraboo.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a proposed request for quotes for the building signage at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. This has been modified so that it's very generic, so that they need to tell us what brand. There is no brand specific in here, so it's not tailored to one company or another, or any company out there. And it's just a request for quotes, like we discussed, quotes versus proposals. With the quotes, we can determine if we're going to do it or not. It's just getting an idea what the cost is, the price is going to be, not binding us into a project.
Thank you, Britt. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I read through the draft, and I appreciate the language within it. The only thing that I don't know if it can be included, I know we're asking for, the onus is on the submitter to show us what they're going to do or what they're proposing to do. But I would like to see samples of vinyl or lettering or schematics, not just paper schematics, but the actual physical, what the material is going to look like. So if we could, I know the process is they submit it via electronically or mail or whatever to you, is that correct? Is there a process that we've ever undergone where they actually then come and present and submit their proposal to the council?
Yes, we definitely can do that. We've, like similar with the architects we've done with, we've made them come in and show us what you're going to do. We can do the same thing for this
So
process.
I would move that forward with that caveat.
Okay, Counselor Paulson moves to move forward the proposed request for quotes for the building signage. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Freilieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 9 comes from Street and Alley. The Street and Alley Committee had a meeting on June 28th, and the first item was review the parking issue at 8th Street and 2nd Avenue.
At the committee meeting, there were 2 committee members present with respect to this, and would either one of you like to give any specific information to the council with respect to this? No? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I can speak to it. I've had conversation with the older lady that owns it. It has to do with the hair salon there. If I remember correctly, I've talked to her a couple of times. We've been trying to figure out, and I was absent, I'm sorry, I was not available for that meeting. She's looking somehow to be able to get her older clientele into her building for a shop. She's probably not going to stay in existence more, she said, than a couple more years, but they need to have something there. You got the the Freedom Station or whatever it's called now, across the street. There's no parking across the street. She has nothing because of calendar parking right in the front, so she's looking for an exception to at least have 1, maybe 2 spots somehow there, so her older clientele, some are handicapped, some are not, just be able to get into that hair salon. We've done this in other areas on a temporary basis, loading zones, et cetera, whatever we can do. It could either be on 2nd Avenue or it could be on 8th Street. So that's where it's coming from. I've been down there. I have not been able to connect to talk to her at all. So whatever the committee did, and I don't know what they did on this issue, but that's the bulk of the issue. And I apologize, I was not there on Tuesday. I was not available.
The committee moved it to this committee whole meeting for further discussion and action.
I don't know what we can do there. 2nd Avenue, they seem to park on both sides anyway. I don't see an issue if we put something on 2nd Avenue adjacent to our building to the east. If we put temporary handicapped, temporary loading zone, I don't know what we can do there. That would be up to the council to discuss some more. Steve, did you have any ideas being part of the committee? You must have been there on Tuesday.
We didn't know what, with the way the agenda item was listed, we had no idea there was no discussion on it.
And that's my fault because I was not at the meeting, so I again apologize. That's a crutch of this. We can move this to the council meeting, and we can get. I don't think is this a map of that? I'm not sure if this is, that's Super One there, yeah. So we can get a map, we can get a map of that area a little bit there in that corner by Freedom and what we got there, or maybe a suggestion or two from you by the time we get to Tuesday's meeting. You're just looking for something temporary until she goes out of business down the road. I've got all her information and stuff at home. I'll contact you with her phone number and everything. Just going to move that we send this to the full council meeting next Tuesday.
Okay, moved by Councilor Councilor Bearable to move this parking request at the intersection or by 8th Street South and 2nd Avenue to the council meeting. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Now that being able to know exactly what that is, there's off-street parking behind the garage for that area, which, you know, that's it's marked as the boundary, but everybody uses that as a right-hand turn lane. So I think there's some real serious considerations to give here about exactly what she's looking for very specifically, and public safety for that corner. It's probably one of the busier corners in town. So, but I pulled up Google Earth or Google Maps, and there's space behind the garage there. I don't know if that solves the problem or not, but there's an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. It has been moved and supported to move this issue to the council meeting next Tuesday. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
We had discussion regarding 17th Street South and 12th Avenue near Super One. Mr. Matt Reed has made us a drawing of a potential concept that we could use to help alleviate some traffic flow pattern concerns in that area.
Welcome back, Matt.
Thank you. Yes, I can try to add some clarification on this one. So Britt handed you out an exhibit this size, and I brought one a little bit bigger, so pick whichever one works best for you. But in a nutshell, what the Street and Alley Committee discussed, which was a follow-up actually to a meeting that we had with Super One themselves, was trying to improve the safety of that intersection of 17th and 12th. And it really comes down to the southbound left turning traffic crossing and turning into Super One, into that entrance onto 12th that they're really not supposed to be going into. And so one of the things that we had discussed was maybe putting a concrete median in there, eliminating the left turn lane, not eliminating the left turn lane. Keeping the left turn lane, but just moving it over one lane, because if you recall over there at that intersection, there's 3 lanes. There's a dedicated through lane, a dedicated right turn lane, and a dedicated left turn lane going south towards towards the intersection of 17th from Highway 53. So we could use the currently dedicated left turn lane for a concrete median, and then we could just shift the left turn lane over one, and then instead of having a dedicated through, dedicated right, we just have a shared through and right. There's no stop sign there, so traffic would just keep moving and should work just fine. Hopefully, that would eliminate traffic turning left into that Super One entrance there. The other thing that we looked at was narrowing up that entrance. That entrance currently is pretty wide. I think it's about 40 feet wide, roughly, 44 feet wide. Typical commercial entrance is 32 feet wide, give or take, plus or minus. That might also help, and it would allow us to shorten that median up as much as we could, so we're not extending it any farther back to interrupt any of the northbound turn lanes. The question that came up at the committee of the whole meeting, or the Street and Alley Committee meeting, was what about the truck traffic turning? So first of all, you have truck traffic coming from the west, a lot of it coming from Menards, that over in that way. So in that turn movement detail in the bottom right-hand corner, it gets a little bit congested, but the blue lines are showing that a semi-truck, tractor trailer turning left, going north. And you can see, if you look real close, probably on the bigger diagram, it's easier to see, but you can see that they will maybe clip the corner of that median, but it will have a drive-over nose on it anyway, so that shouldn't be an issue. Then the question about potentially a right-turning tractor trailer coming from the Super One area on 17th heading north was a very valid question that was brought up. I forget who brought it up, but it was a very valid question. And so we ran a turning movement there, because oftentimes they have to swing out wider into that intersection to get around that corner. And so what we think we can do, I went down there and took a look at it, and I'm certain that Super One would work with us on this with an easement or whatever we needed to do. We haven't talked to them yet, but they've been very, very good to work with and want to see this improved. So we can increase, when we do the 17th Street project, we can increase that radius on that northeast quadrant of that intersection to allow those trucks to more easily navigate that right turning corner if we have a median in there. So geometrically, I guess the bottom line is, I think we can do it. It's just a matter of whether or not the city wants it. This is a concept, we'll have to refine it. Maybe that radius becomes a 50-foot radius instead of a 45-foot radius. But conceptually, it looks like it will work. We'll just have to get together with Super One and see if they're open to, we're probably gonna need an easement there. I don't have the right-of-way shown on here because I didn't have the time to research that, but I'm quite certain we'll be on to Super One's property there on that corner. But I think we can do it. If it's something that the city is interested in pursuing, I would recommend that we just add it into the project that we're gonna do, that you just moved ahead a little while ago, because we're gonna be right there working anyway, reconstructing 17th Street, so that would be the time to do the radius, and you might as well plop the median in there at the same time, if that's the decision that we want to move ahead with. So I can answer any questions you may have, or...
Thank you, Matt. Councilor Baraboo.
Matt, I like even though I missed the meeting, I like the concept, and I think Super One, from talking to them, would be amenable to cutting off that northeast corner to make that radius a lot easier, because all that yellow would disappear for the trucks, and when they make the corner there, they can easily do that. We can put a little higher curb maybe or something along that corner there, something like that, so it's just so the trucks don't hop over it too bad. But I like the concept of what you're doing. This will prevent people going in the wrong way into Super One also.
Right.
And most people are coming right down to the end for the left-hand turn. They're coming way down into the corner anyway when they do that left-hand turn to Super One. Most of the cars don't start it where it starts anyway, where you got it marked. So I like this concept. I think we should move forward with it. And I'm going to make a motion to move forward with this and put it in the plan we just discussed earlier, and put it in that conceptual plan.
Okay, thank you. It's moved by Councilor Baraboo. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson for discussion. Further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. Matt, on the, where it says the proposed curb and gutter, proposed raised median, the length of that area here, how much is that covering up on that, which is supposed to be the exit of Super One? Will that alleviate people making that illegal entrance? And how far does it go into that? I'm just having a little tough time.
Yeah,
Covers it up
it's a
completely
little hard
here?
it'd be easier if we went out there and I could probably show you, but by narrowing up their entrance a little bit, so right now this entrance goes this whole distance, by narrowing that up a little bit and then stemming a median out, it should keep people from, I mean, could somebody sneak in like this and do that? They could, but they'd be really going out of their
But that's a great
lane
way
to do
to
that.
keep that safe from people
Yeah.
entering in. It's actually an exit only.
Yeah, and it will eliminate the left, it'll also, by doing that though, it'll eliminate the left turn out of Super One going south too. So people are gonna have to go back to this intersection
around.
and come back to.
How hard
But-
would that be? Like you get a lot of boat trailer traffic there. How hard would that be for them to snake back around to go out that?
They can, I'm not gonna say all, but I would say the very high majority, high percentage of the boat traffic and camper traffic is going out heading back towards 53.
north.
And so they can get back out there, no problem, and head north, just like they do now.
Okay,
It's if they decided that they were gonna go back out on Southern Drive and go down that way for some reason, then they'd have to come back around to the 17th Street entrance and then come back to the intersection, which I don't think that would be all that big of a deal for them.
thank you for that, appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Matt. Item 9C is allow staff to review the request for the curb cuts at 1027th Avenue and 401 4th Street South, and to present to the committee of the whole for further review. And Jim Rossford, our Public Works Director, did go out there and take a look at both of these locations.
Yeah, and I think the committee, I sat in on behalf of Counselor Bearable just as an individual to hear, so I think the two members of the committee, Counselor Barnzelli and Counselor Johnson, discussed it at length, and we did get some recommendations from our Public Works Director, Jim Rosvit. He went and took a look at it, and both of these are garages and accesses to them, and he felt that it should be any problem moving forward. And he said that he was supportive of those curb cuts, but I'll defer to the committee. Counselor Johnson.
Well, Mayor, you summarized it. I don't think there's anything extra needed
Okay,
to be
all
said.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. So that's kind of it. We have a gentleman in the audience here, Mr. Etter, who is one of those individuals who's constructing a garage, needs the curb cut wide enough so that they can access the garage in there. And the other individual is not present today, but both of them were recommended, or actually, our Park and Public Works Director, Jim Rosser, said there should be any problem with the curb cut with no adverse effect on the flow of traffic in the areas that's being requested for the curb cut. Counselor Paulson.
I'll move to approve, Mayor.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Formal adoption of this will come at the next council meeting, Mr. Etter, next Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item from the Street and Alley Committee meeting was a request we had received from the United Methodist Church for more signage, additional signage for additional parking along 9th Avenue. It was moved and supported at the meeting to allow the United Methodist Church to obtain signage in place in the requested area when needed to utilize parking near the church.
Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, just a question, since I missed that meeting. These would just be temporary signs, Steve? They would not be permanent signs for further parking where they put out during the time of church and stuff, like some of the places do, is that correct?
That was the discussion, is that other churches put out, or funeral homes put out
Yeah.
signs and utilize it that way.
Okay, okay, then I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I will move that we send a letter to them that they can obtain signage on their own, at their own cost. I want to make sure that's in there, and place as they needed temporarily for events.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support. Oh, okay.
Support by the committee member, Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
We had an additional handicap parking request at 1004 3rd Street South. We had taken a look at it, city staff has taken a look at it, and the parking space that they're requesting is in the middle of the middle of the roadway, not at a designated ADA access point. So it was suggested at the Street and Alley Commission meeting to have the resident work with the HOA to see if they'd be able to assist with creating a designated parking spot for the individual.
Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. This request came with medical documentation, but again, in order to meet the letter of the law, putting an accessible parking spot in the middle of a block would not work. And then again, we could not guarantee anybody with a accessible hangar would be able to park there. So this person lives on, there's parking in the rear, so I will move that we direct, I don't remember what I said, to direct staff to suggest that the person work with HRA and work within the residential area there of their property.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Matt Reed from SCH was at the meeting to discuss 2 federal funding sources we are receiving for upcoming street projects. We've been notified we've been receiving just short of $1 million from the 569 program through the Army Corps of Engineers. And the question is, would to spread that money over all the remaining projects under the environmental review for the 2023 street project, or do we define what streets we want that funding to be utilized on? At the meeting, Mr. Reed suggested that we use that funding for 6th Avenue and 17th Street, as those 2 streets do not have state aid or any other direct funding sources tied to them. They would have been funded simply by city levy and special assessments. So his suggestion was to use this funding to take down the portion of city levy funds we'd have to use to pay for those 2 streets. And it was the recommendation from the committee to allow the 6th Avenue and 17th Street as the potential projects for the 569 Army Corps of Engineering funding, to allow staff to begin the environmental review process.
Thank you. Anything more, Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt was able to explain it. I'm going to ask you to do that again about how that doesn't matter what gets funded. The portion to the taxpayers is still the same. It's just the amount of time it takes to pay back. So if you could do it like you did last time.
All right. Yep, so on all of these streets, we're using multiple mechanisms to pay back or to pay off the cost of the project. Of course, you've got special assessments, we've got state aid, we've got this federal money that Britt just referenced, that I'm glad you said it was a little less than $1 million, because for some reason I can never remember what the exact amount of this one was. It's 900 and something, 76,000, I think. There's some additional federal funding that is yet to be coming that we're told we don't have it in place yet. And then there may be some additional IRRB there, but the point is then there's going to be the general tax levy that Counselor Johnson referenced. So as we get into this, the question is going to become, well, when we apply this state aid, we apply the federal money, we apply the grant money, what does that do to my assessment? That's the first question that's probably going to come up. And at the end of the day, with the type of bonding that the city's talking about doing, there has to be a minimum of 20% assessed to the property owners. So the city's policy on certain streets or avenues requires 30%, but there has to be a minimum per state statute of 20% to utilize the certain type of bonds that the city's planning on using. So no matter where we apply it, it's really not going to bring down the assessment, but it will still benefit the city greatly because it's going to bring down the amount of the city tax levy that's going to be required to pay back the bonds. So just for clarification, that if people are asking, hey, you know, you're applying it to this road, applying it to this road and not this road, and how they're getting their assessments lowered and I'm not, that's not accurate. It's bringing down the city's general levy portion of it is what it'll end up doing. So that makes sense. That's what you're asking me to explain? Okay. That makes sense to everybody?
So I guess what Matt is trying to say here is their overall tax bill will go down a little bit if we apply it correctly from their overall tax bill. If you're going to pay $1,000, you might pay $900 in your tax bill. That's actually how it ends up overall in the end.
Correct. It brings the city's share, okay, let's call it that. The city's share of the project comes down because it's being paid for by grant money. So and where that gets put into the city's share is it won't get pulled out of the assessments necessarily, it'll get pulled out of the city's payback to the bonds with the overall levy.
Counselor Paulson?
Thank you. So just to put it in my own brain thoughts, So it doesn't matter, it's a minimum, at least, the assessment is a minimum of at least 20% of the gross project, not the net. The net, meaning the deductions of all the grant money, or no matter where the money comes from, the assessed portion of that is still on the overall total. I would call that the gross project cost or total.
Correct, and to maybe further clarify, it's per street. So people on Sixth Avenue, whatever their total project, gross project costs are, that's how their assessment is based off of that. It's not necessarily based off an average of 17th and 6th together.
Got it.
'Cause it's-
And is there a way that we can better kind of communicate that to the public, just to maybe alleviate some angst if taxpayers have that it is based on the overall number, it doesn't matter how that grant gets paid down, or by, whether if it's state money, federal money, or whatever other grants are associated with it, is there a way that we can communicate that better?
Yeah, we can do that, Matt. Also, Julianne, there is a whole house by house by house by street assessment policy that everybody will be invited to within a certain distance that has an assessment. So they will all see ahead of time what they're actually going to be assessed. And then we have the auspices, we have a minimum of 10 years. If you have some big fantastic thing out there, somebody has hundreds and hundreds of feet on a street, we have made exceptions for longer pay on those. So there is a way that everybody will know, and we have to have, what, 2 public hearings, 1 public hearing on that, Matt? I don't remember anymore.
Just had the first one, we're required to have the improvement hearing, that's what we just had. And then we're required to have the assessment hearing
They
at the
come
end of the
later.
project. Yep.
And they're usually about a year behind when we finish these projects. Okay?
Counselor Johnson?
And the other part, at one of the last hearings, somebody talked about, putting a toll on either end of 17th Street or something. This using federal money kind of is everybody else's share to pave those well-used streets. So that was the other thought that I had brought up in the meeting, is using federal money for these 2 very well-traveled streets allows for everybody else to pitch in as well. So there's kind of that perception that everybody else is helping, not just the residents there.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. So we're looking for Counselor Paulson. Did you have something first?
I have something within the street and alley, but within the minutes, and
Okay,
it's a
different-
little different
okay.
topic.
John, please.
Thank you. Matt did a nice job at Street and Alley talking about the federal money, the grant money is great, but it puts a really additional spin on everything when you get to the environmental review process. And that's, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about that. I mean, I could, but Matt, if you want to shine a little bit more light on what that means for a project and decisions we need to make, and your recommendation made sense because we have somebody willing to help us with that, so.
Yeah, so as part of the federal funding process, that as you can imagine, the amount of paperwork goes up substantially. But one of the big steps that comes into play when the federal funds is involved is there's a much more laborious environmental review process that they go through. And so, for example, if you remember on 13th Street, we've been working on a project memorandum. In fact, it's been submitted, and we got that $750,000 in surface transportation block grant money. And that's all been focused on that little stub of 10th Avenue and 13th Street. So that's kind of all under that one umbrella, so we're gonna put that off to the side and leave that one alone, because we don't want to upset the apple cart there with that one. Now, when we come back to getting this other federal money, the Army Corps of Engineers actually will take on doing the NEPA review for you guys, which is a significant cost savings. It might take a little more time, that's the downside to it, because they've got more than just your project as a focus, whereas if I was doing it for you, it would be more of a primary focus for me. But I certainly definitely recommend you guys do that, have them do it for you. It's gonna save you some money, and we just have to make sure we provide the documentation. But where John was going with that was, rather than encompass all the remaining streets under this environmental review, because that in and of itself makes it more challenging and a much larger scope for the Corps. So if we can narrow it down for them to one or two streets that are gonna have project costs that are gonna have enough to cover the grant money, but also have enough built into it to have the city share, because the city does have a match on that grant money. I think it's 20% if I remember right. So narrowing it down to the two streets rather than 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, it helps focus that effort a little bit more as well. So that's why, another reason why it made sense to focus on 6th Avenue and 17th Street.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, John. Okay, Councilor Baraboo.
Just one quick comment. I want to thank the committee of two of Carl and Steve and Mayor. I want to thank you two also for stepping in for me. I'm sorry I just could not. I had a medical issue I could not be here with. So thank you guys all for what you, and Matt, you also, and whoever else you had with you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Paulson, did you have anything more? Well, we don't have a motion yet, so is this related to this thing here? So,
No, but I'll make a motion to approve.
okay, moved by Councilor Paulson, supported by Councilor Johnson to move forward with recommend that 6th Avenue and 17th Street as the projects for the 569 Army Corps of Engineers project. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. On the committee minutes, the last little paragraph, it says, Jim Rosfit informed the council about the trees in the boulevards and the problems that are occurring from the large tree roots, suggested the city begin to address the issue. I have a question, and I don't know if it's ever been brought up, in terms of if we do have to do some tree removal or mass tree removal, would that be an opportunity for us to widen our city streets as we work towards our different street projects? Am I opening up a bad can of worms? But if those trees need to be gone, could we then widen those streets to maybe shorten the boulevard, either only on one side or on both sides? And is that something that we do or should be having a conversation with, if that would be a direction you would recommend going?
Matt?
That's certainly an option, similar to what we did on 3rd Street, right in front of the baseball field there at Lakeside Park. We have gone to eliminating boulevards altogether. We're moving sidewalks right to the back of curb, which eliminates a number of headaches, and certainly that requires the trees get removed. In some instances where the streets are narrower, and maybe we want to add parking, or in some respects, we have to meet a certain width requirement. If it's a state aid street, we have to make sure we're meeting the parking requirements and the width requirements. But certainly, if there's some streets where we need to widen them a little bit, if we're going to eliminate the boulevard, that's certainly an option. Most of the streets that we're doing right now, I'd have to look a little closer. I'm just going to leave it at that. That would be an option to consider, certainly.
And I'm also thinking of the public safety aspect of being able to get our emergency vehicles through those streets when you've got people parking on different sides of those streets. Some of the streets are very, very narrow. So not to take away from the beauty that trees bring, but if they are causing a problem with the root structure, and going forward, maybe that's a conversation that could be had. It was just a suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, we voted on that other one, right? So we're good to go. So, Councilor
Just
Baraboo.
one comment I'm going to make to the council. It probably was 10, 12 years ago now. We had a street, 11th Street South, that we had all set for the feasibility to redo, and individuals have a right during the feasibility study, and the residents there turned that down. They didn't want their big trees taken out. So we postponed that whole street. Matt will remember this. And a year later, they came back to us and asked us to redo their street, and we didn't have the funding, so it sat, and it's still there. So you have to have a good process to let them know what damage these tree roots do. They do it underneath and they do it up above. It's not just what you see on the sidewalks. They do damage underneath the sewers and storm sewers.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable, appreciate that. Okay, anything else on the committee there?
Not
Okay,
from Street and Alley. Thank you.
thank you.
Item number 10 was review proposed ordinance entitled Private Utilities Constructed in City Right-of-Way.
Okay,
This comes about as a request from our Community Development Planning and Permitting Office because we are seeing a lot of utilities such as telecommunications and other private utilities being placed in our right-of-way. And when they put them in there, they're not coming back and establishing grass or reestablishing concrete. And we, at this moment, our ordinance does not allow for us to have any reactionary measures, and it does not require for them to put a bond up either. So we don't know, they don't have to bring us insurance information, they don't have to bring us bond information at this moment. So we're not getting that information, so we don't know who to even go find to put the grass back or to put the concrete back.
so this
This
ordinance,
ordinance would allow us to require them to put a bond in or a certificate of insurance. We would have their contact information, and if they don't do it in a timely manner, then we can do it and to keep their bond or go after their insurance.
that makes
company.
sense. John, anything more to add to that?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable,
Yeah, Mayor, I think this is a great thing we need to do. I mean, we require anybody that does street work and any other stuff to have bonds out there. Why wouldn't we, these private utilities companies that are coming in and stuff to do this? And I think this is a great move forward, so we can at least collect the damages in dollars if they don't repair them to the proper specs. So I think this is a great ordinance.
okay, thank you. So it's, the other item I was concerned is to review the ordinance. So we've reviewed it, we've had some comments on it. So does the council have any action they'd like to take at this time?
It'll be automatically moved to the council meeting, correct? Or do you want a motion, Brett?
It should be, go ahead, it should be in the form of a motion.
Okay, I'll make that motion. We move this formally to the council meeting next week, Tuesday.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Bearable to move this item to the council agenda for next Tuesday. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Brett? One more item?
On your desk, there's two other items. The first one is the Air Care Intercept Agreement.
And I'm very familiar with this, but it would be nice to have, I know that Chief Frederickson is off today, but
Did send an email kind of trying to explain what this means.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, the way air medical reimbursement goes, when they transport a patient, they receive extra funds for treatment of the patient before the flight to the hospital. This is their way of saying they feel they shouldn't be taking this money if a ground ambulance did the work, so they would pay us. Find this to be great news. They increased the rate at which they are paying us. Last figures I saw, we were averaging more than one transfer of a patient to Air Care a week. Also worth noting, this is just North Memorial's agreement. LifeLink has one also, and I expect to see that one come through here soon, too. I see, it is extremely rare that we see a helicopter from a company different than these two in our area.
yeah, it's, thank you very much, Britt. Okay, Councilor Johnson.
So my question would be, is there any anti-kickback statute stuff we need to worry about with this?
No, we will be well under those dollar amounts.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Okay, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So it says in here, the number 7 is the reimbursement, ground ambulance provider $350 for scene support provided by a BLS certified ambulance and $500 for scene support provided by an ALS. So how does that correlate with what Chief Frederickson is saying here? I'm not understanding what he's saying. Last figures I saw, we were averaging more than one transfer of a patient to Air Care a week. So does that mean it's ALS or BLS care? And how does that impact
ALS
revenue?
care.
Ambulance, helicopter transfers ALS service.
ALS service.
ALS service, correct.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So how, can we get some numbers from the chief on
Yeah,
that?
definitely. I can ask him for that.
Especially because of, in light of what's kind of going on there. And how this impacts, I'm fine with the agreement. This has been in place for a while. I guess I'd like to get some more information regarding those figures on average. Thank you.
Thank you. It would be prudent for us if we could get those questions answered, hopefully by the next city council meeting. So I think it would be wise for us to move this forward to the next, for the council meeting for approval. And that is probably what we're requesting here, right, Britt? Thank you.
Mayor, I'll also make that motion and move this forward to the council meeting next Tuesday.
Okay, moved by Counselor Bearable. Is there support? Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And the next item for your review is the facilities use agreements for the Rock Ridge Public Schools, ISD 2909, and the Rock Ridge Youth Hockey Association.
I think this is a fair agreement. I think the school should be, I shouldn't say that, but I think it would be amenable to this, obviously. I think the agreement is really a pretty very reasonable agreement. So looking for council action and information. Councilor Johnson.
I would move that these two agreements to the council meeting on Tuesday so we have time to review them over the next week.
Thank you. Do we need to do that in single motions, or we can do it in one? We can do it in one motion. So Councilor Johnson moves to bring the facilities use agreement between the City of Virginia and the Rock Ridge Youth Hockey Association and the facilities agreement between the City of Virginia and the Independent School District number 2909 to the next council meeting for final action. It'll give us time to review each one of these contracts. Is there support for that?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say thank you to our attorney for having both of these contracts reflected and mirroring each other as facility use agreements. The only question that I have, I think, is for Brian, our Park and Rec Director. I read through these when you sent them, but I haven't reread them until this morning. In terms of the scheduling, again, when we talked about they would be submitting their schedules, is that in the contract or does that not need to be in the contract? I didn't see it in there, but I read it.
It should be in
Is it
the
in here?
contract.
In the Exhibit A.
Yeah, Exhibit A.
Okay. Okay, so, oh, here we go. Thank you.
And just for complete and total transparency, we already have a meeting set up with youth hockey and figure skating to be discussing ice scheduling. At this point in the year, the high school staff is not employed, or is off for the summer, so they are not involved in this first meeting that we are having, but we will be having roundtable discussions, getting everybody on the same page.
I'm sure you will. I just wanted to make sure that that is in fact the case with each contract, that they will be allowed to submit a request of schedule, but not necessarily guaranteed that schedule, that language is still correct. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Bearable.
Brian, I just have a quick question for you. With these two contracts, especially the 2909, youth hockey is separate. Have you had discussion with their school board on this contract, or have they seen this at all yet? Because there's some opposition to some of these things we're looking for in these contracts.
I have not had discussions with the school board. I've had discussions with school staff.
Okay? But that isn't the voting power.
That is not the voting power, which is why previously I said once this agreement makes it to the school board, we could go back into negotiations and everything.
We got lobbying to do, maybe.
We-
Okay, thank you.
Correct, sir.
All right, thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. That's anything else? That's anything else, Brett? John, anything for the committee of the whole?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything on the election issues that you want to bring forth? You don't need, we're good to go. Anybody else? Counselor Johnson?
One quick thing. Jim, Public Works Supervisor, I got a phone call, a positive phone call from a resident on 17th Street and 8th Avenue. Was very pleased. Earlier this winter, there was a minor accident on a garage downspout, and she was very pleased with the quick response, and she didn't even notice it until you came and fixed it. So she wanted me to pass it on directly to you and your staff. That did a good job and appreciate the work.
Yeah, thank you. And real quickly, just an addendum to that, I had a chance to talk to you when you were doing that skim coating over there on 17th Street. Walked up and down the street, talked to a bunch of the neighbors there. They came out, couldn't be more appreciative of having that temporary fix. So way to move forward with that. So, okay, anything else to come before the council committee home meeting today? Seeing and hearing none, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.